good afternoon or morning or evening, whenever you might be watching this. Actually, doesn't really matter. It's afternoon here in New York. But I'm Cori Ellison, and welcome to Conversations in Quarantine, another episode. And our guest today is James Gaffigan, very busy international conductor who is American and I believe a native New Yorker like myself.
Yes. Yep.
Uh-huh. Yeah, born
Yep.
and bred.
Yep. Born and bred. I went to public school in New York City, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Great. But right now, where does this pandemic find you geographically?
Well, I escaped to Norway, where my wife and my baby are living, where we have an apartment. It's kind of my home these days. And I was supposed to be at the Metropolitan Opera, and they closed the day of my opening night of Cenerentola.
Oh my!
So we had a beautiful cast, and we were ready to go. The orchestra sounded amazing, and that's when we got the phone call that afternoon. And so I had to make a decision whether to stay in New York City and keep the flights that my wife and my baby Luca had, or go to Norway. And my gut reaction and my manager's reaction was get out as soon as possible. And I hated that because my first instinct was to stay in New York City because it's a city I love. And even in times of crisis, I somehow trust New Yorkers and how they respond to emergency situations. So, but in the end, I didn't want my wife Camilla and Luca to be stuck in customs or quarantined in New York City. So I kind of got on one of the last flights allowed to land in Oslo, and I've been very happy being here throughout this crisis.
Really? So
Yeah.
what does a day in your life look like? Do you have a sort of a routine or do you kind of make
Yeah. Well,
it go on?
yeah. I mean, it started out as a kind of vacation because it was like, the vacation I've always wanted, just to wake up with no alarm, the alarm being my son. When he wakes up, it could be anywhere from 6:30 to 7:30, latest 8 a.m. And it's beautiful here outside of Oslo. There's an amazing view. I could see the fjord out my window, actually. And we live very close to nature. And so we've been going on walks in the woods, and we've been walking into the little town to go shopping, and just spending a lot of time as a family, doing a lot of cooking. I'm obsessed. I love cooking, and the problem is I make every meal an event, and that's
I don't
the
think
only.
that's a problem. I'm certainly on the receiving end. That's not a problem.
Yeah. We call it. My wife calls it our restaurant. So,
Uh-huh.
but we've been having a lot of great food. Unfortunately, the money's not flowing these days, as many of my colleagues would agree. So there's not the fanciest wine that I would necessarily like to have with the meal. But we're having a lot of great meals and a lot of great family time. And my son Luca just started kindergarten. They opened kindergarten today in Norway on this Monday. So that was really nice. He went to school from 8:30 to 2:30, and there's no panic really in Norway right now. I think it all has calmed down a little bit. And yeah, and as far as a routine, I've been reading a lot, more than normal, more than I usually read, because I normally only read on flights when I'm traveling week to week.
Right.
and I find, the time at night just before bed is really nice, just to wind down. It's sort of, I guess, the normal lifestyle I've never had, and I kind of all of a sudden have, and so I love
What
it.
you wish for, as they say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, one thing though is interesting is, you know, uh, performing artists have it rough right now, of course, because there's been a lot of work canceled and so on. And the thing is, though, that they are practicing. I know
Yeah,
I've spoken to some instrumentalists and singers.
yeah.
Now, as a conductor, how do you keep your chops up in a time like this?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, my wife, who's a violinist, actually, she's supposed to
Ah,
be playing in the Santa Fe Chamber Festival this summer,
wow.
and I'm conducting in that too. But she's practicing almost daily, and but for me, the most frustrating thing is learning pieces that I'm not going to do. It's like there are certain masterpieces where you should learn them anyway. As a musician, as a someone who loves music, you should sit there and learn these scores. So, but for me, it's depressing because a lot of the pieces I was supposed to be doing in the next 4 months are not
Uh,
happening. But a piece like Tristan and Isolde,
yes,
which
which is
I'm
what you're doing in Santa Fe, which, yeah,
supposed to be doing, let's say,
well,
knock on wood, fingers crossed.
yep.
But for me, the worst case scenario, even if it doesn't happen, I'm still learning that score because it's like it's like vitamins for me, or almost like drugs. I'm not into,
Vitamins, drugs.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
right.
I'm not really into drugs, but I would say that this music is the most intoxicating thing ever written.
Yeah,
And I've been in love with this piece since I was about 23 years old, and now I'm 40, and I've been looking forward to doing this piece for the longest time. So like I said, if it doesn't happen, and I understand because we need to keep everyone safe,
yeah.
I will do it in the future, and I'm falling more and more in love with it every week.
Oh, it is something, it is like a drug in the sense that it's addictive.
It
That's
is,
true.
and
Yeah.
the more you know, the more addicted. That's why Wagnerites are just
Yeah.
crazy and beautiful at the same time, because
There's are yeah.
yeah, they're super fans. It's like I always compare it to, like, Dungeons and Dragons fans, or like,
Star
people,
Trek.
the Lord of the Rings, Star Trek.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's a certain mentality.
Yeah.
You have patience for all the character, all the subplots, all of this stuff. And I think in Wagner, the more you hear the music, the more you realize how much of a genius he actually was. And at first, when you learn in school about music, or just, I don't know, the lay audience, you you don't learn that Wagner is as brilliant as Mozart or Bach, or, or Brahms for that matter. But the
True.
fact is, whew, this guy, whether he wasn't the nicest man on earth, and there are a lot of
Oh,
issues with
a lot of
his
issues.
beliefs, yeah, but as
Charitable.
far as his musicianship and his craftsmanship,
Yeah.
I there's
Both
no one to compare.
musically, yeah, both musically and dramatically. I mean, he's been an influence on so many, not just music, of course, but theater, psychology, you name
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it's really, the impact of Wagner is really, unparalleled.
No,
So
it's unreal.
it sounds like you're having a pretty good time, and I'm really glad to hear that
I
during,
hate to say that because some of my friends are having a really
yeah.
rough time, but financially it is very scary,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm not going to lie, because I'm someone who, as a conductor, I make a very good salary, but I haven't had savings, and I haven't been, like most artists, we're blowing it on travel, on dinners, on our family.
Promotion, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a scary time, but I think it gives me comfort that everyone's going through this.
Mhm.
And some companies are doing great things by paying them, and unfortunately that wasn't the case for me. But I do have some institutions that are taking very good care of me, and that makes me feel good, and like part of a family.
Yeah, that really is an important thing.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I worry the most for freelancers in New York City or LA. I mean, that
and
they're depending on that money, that gigging fee, to get them to pay rent.
yeah,
And how are they going to do it? It's not fair. And so yeah,
and
it's difficult.
you have ongoing relationships with a couple of big orchestras,
Yeah,
the Lucerne, um,
Symphony Orchestra. Yeah, yeah. I'm
right?
chief of, and we just had a recording come out that we're so proud of. Gramophone just wrote up a big article, and it's a beautiful Rachmaninoff recording. And Rachmaninoff had a very deep relationship with Lucerne. He had a home there, and he
Right.
wrote, as Wagner did,
Yes,
actually.
Yeah.
And I think so. Yeah, I love the Lucerne Symphony and Netherlands Radio Philharmonic. I missed them. I was supposed to be there last week doing Stabat Mater of
Oh,
Dvorak.
oh, that's
So
a great piece.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
but at least you've got those jobs,
yeah,
they're pretty
yeah.
secure. So that's great. That's really great. What do you think is this is going to be a long haul, no matter how it shakes out. I mean, the effects of this pandemic are going to be felt for quite some time. What do
Yeah.
you see as the role of an artist in sort of digging out of that crisis?
Well, I think the thing everyone recognizes right away is how much we need human connection. I think even a lot of people that I would consider antisocial are having a really hard time with this. And I think if anything speaks to a human being, it's music, and it's watching musicians breathe and play together. And that's why I find a lot of these online things very cute, like orchestras playing together
Yeah,
and chamber music. It's very cute and it's a nice message, but it also proves that you can't do it that way.
it really it's
You
pretty
need to be in the
possible.
same room, right? And that's also the difference of recordings and a live concert experience. So I think people are going to come out of this craving and wanting the live experience as long as it's safe to be there. And I think our role as an artist is to give peace to people, in times like these. And it's like listening to great music is the closest thing you could come to meditation, or
Yes.
or just shutting off your mind. And if you've had a busy life or a stressful life, or you're suffer with depression, I find that music can help. And we're doctors in some way, helping the public forget about their problems and their everyday problems. And that's why I love music so much. I would say I'm selfish because I love this music, you know, and that's why I do it. It's not because I want to please the public. It's because I love this music.
Yeah. Well, that's I think fundamentally every artist has to be in love with their art form.
Yeah.
So yeah. What are you most looking forward to returning to once normalcy resumes?
Well, I would say being in a room with musicians. I mean, I know that sounds obvious, but it's it's honestly being with musicians and interacting with them. That's what I'm craving the most, and being able to hear sound made in front of me and not on an iPad. So I would just say I'm not craving a party. I'm not craving a great restaurant. I'm really craving music, live music, and it doesn't have to be classical. It could be jazz. It could be rock. It just the idea of being people making music with one another, and that's really, yeah, that's what I crave the most.
Yeah, I think people may come out of this with a new appreciation of that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so. I think they'll come out of this with a new appreciation for how important it is, but also how important it is to be home and be either alone or with your family or your close people. Because I've learned a lot this last month about myself, um, about what I need. Because I mean, I've needed this time off for a very long time, and I finally got it, and it's great, but also there's a price to pay.
yeah,
So the question is, how much should you work, and how much time off should you take? And I think that's a question uh, we all have issues with, because there's no right answer. Everyone's different.
absolutely. I think a lot of people are going to come out of this experience really re-examining the proportions in their lives.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I had an interview the other day with the Netherlands radio. I mean, with uh, someone from the radio in the Netherlands, and they said everyone, you know, the people's reactions are all different. Like people are going to work less. I swear I'm going to work less. I need more time with my family. And then they go right back to doing what they've been doing before.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But I think it's clear to me that the way I've been living my life for the past, let's say, decade and a half it's been too much. And I've learned a big lesson. And I I don't want to say it's a midlife crisis, but I am 40, and I think that there are other things much more important than, conducting the Vienna Philharmonic or, Otello at La Scala. Of course, these are things to strive for, and they're great when they do happen. And but it's not the most important thing, actually.
Right. Or there are other things at least equally as important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one last question, James. Since you brought up the topic, what's for dinner tonight?
Well, the thing is, we ate dinner already because
right, you're in Norway.
We had a family dinner, so we've been in Norway. We go to an amazing fishmonger, and this guy's been open throughout the whole pandemic, and he is incredible. So every time I go, I say, "What do you got that's different?" And he introduced me to redfish, this Norwegian redfish, which I've never had before. Now I have a whole Norwegian char, a type of char from the north of Norway. But tonight, what I did, which was interesting, I made these kind of, how in the US the crab cakes are popular.
Oh yeah.
These are salmon cakes, which are like, these beautiful Norwegian salmon, just very simply baked in the oven. And you shred it up and put panko breadcrumbs and all sorts of good stuff in there. And it was just beautiful. And then, Norway's also into these root vegetables. So, I've always gone to markets and been like, what is that green thing? What is it called? A rutabaga? No, it's called I have to see. Hold on one second while I ask my wife what it's called. Kohlrabi. It's called kohlrabi.
Oh, okay.
Kohlrabi. And I said, what do you do with that thing? And so I made very thin slices, matchsticks, and made this amazing fresh like slaw out of it with orange juice, lime zest, orange zest, and olive oil and some jalapeno pepper to kick it up a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
And it was beautiful.
Jalapeno in Norway?
You can actually. I was shocked by that because that's the hardest thing to find, things like jalapeno peppers and stuff.
Well, there's plenty of them in Santa Fe, and every chili pepper your heart desires, and we are going to have to make you have a dinner party.
I would love it. I just made salsa of guajillo, the smoked jalapeno. I even found them here. Anyway, I love the food in Santa Fe, and when I made that salsa, I thought of Santa Fe. I miss it so much.
Well, hopefully we'll be reunited there.
Hopefully. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, James. It was really a pleasure to talk to you. Have a great
Pleasure's all mine. Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye. Or good evening.